Well, hello. Most web pages use forms for user input. It really is the best way to get feedback from the person visiting your website and submitting things to the server. And Vue, as so many most frameworks do, have ways to make your life a little bit easier when creating forms. So, we're going to be creating a basic Vue framework here. Now I could say legacy, and that'll create a Vue2 framework, which will work just fine for what we're doing here today. But instead of legacy, I'm going to do latest. There we go. And our project name is going to be Vue form. There we go. And we don't need any of these extras here because we're just doing very basic stuff today. Basic Vue stuff, and done, created. And we'll go into our folder here with the newly created project and finish installing all the extra little packages that are needed to run our... There we go. And now we're going to run our newly created form. Let's see what it looks like. And there we are, we did it. We've got our newly created framework up and running. So, just minimize this terminal here, and we're going to go in and deal with the App.vue. We're going to be dealing just with that file today. And we'll just comment out the things we don't need, these components. I mean, components are nice, but we won't be using them here. So we've got a nice clean page to work with. And let's create our form tag. And a form tag doesn't contain anything by itself. You have to put stuff in it. The main job a form does is submit data. So at submit, the at symbol is a nice short form that Vue gives us. And instead of assigning it a place to submit it to, we're going to prevent that submission. The default behavior of a form is to gather all the data together in a standardized format, send it off to a server, and reload the web page. We don't have a server element in this project we're going to be doing here. So I'll just prevent it from submitting and eliminate that whole problem. And that's another nice way that Vue helps us at submit.prevent. Okay, let's do our first form element. And I'll wrap that form element in a label. And here's our input tag, and our type will be text. And whoop, there we go. That's correct. And you can see it showed up there nicely. ABC. Now it doesn't do very much right now. We want it to be a little more interactive. So let's create a value. And now I can say value equals ABCDE. And you can see it took it. Now Vue gives us a colon, and that means instead of taking this string as a literal, we'll take it as a variable. And we'll call that variable simple text. Now simple text doesn't exist right now, so let's go up and create it. There we go. And we'll give it a reference. Now reference is just a way of saying that we want to be able to read and write from this variable. Without a reference, it's pretty much read-only. And you'll notice this import ref at Vue came in. That's something our editor we need, and our editor put in for us. Thank you very much, editor. So I'll just put in a value here, and you can see it shows up. So good. We've got our variable inputting data into our field, but we want to be able to read from that field as well. Now I'm going to open up a Vue tool here. This tool comes with Firefox and Chrome and I'm sure other browsers too. But here, let's just do a refresh here, and there, you can see our simple text has the default value ABC, and it's a reference. Good. But putting data in there does nothing to our variable. So we have to at input event, and the at symbol is a convenient way of doing input. Well, when we do input, we want to set the simple text variable equal to the event. There we go. First, find the event that's called. The target will be this input label, and the value of this input is what we want. So there we go. And I have to refresh sometimes because sometimes these things don't take all the time. There we go. So I can now have two-way binding. It's read, the ABC shows up by default, and write, DEF is what I put in. And it worked. Good. So we have a simpler way of doing that. I mean, Vue has already given us a couple of ways of simplifying this, but there's a better way. vModel. And all we have to do is say vModel equals simple text. And here we go. I put it in and it shows up in both places. So these are essentially the same fields. vModel equals simple text is simply a short form way of saying set the value, set the input event, etc. One just expands into the other. They are the exact same thing. Good. Now, there's always more than one way of doing these inputs. So I'm going to call this we're going to do a text area. And how do you do a text area? Well, all you do is put in vModel. And there we are. We've got our text area, and it changes things right along with everything else. So perfect. So that is what makes things simpler there. Now we've got a bunch of fields here. I'm going to start putting in some labels here. Event, to say that that's how we're doing it. We're doing vModel here. And this is going to be our text area. There we go. And now I'm going to change things a little bit. You see, vModel and the input field are now on different lines. So let's put a little style sheet here to deal with that. Little problem. Display inline block. Now what this will do is it'll put the labels and the input values on the same line. Good. And a little margin around it. 0.2 rem. Yep. I think that'll work. Good. A little bit of spacing. So let's just make this a little wider so we can, there we go. Okay. So we have seen how vModel, just putting that in, simplifies our everything. But vModel has things that are called modifiers we can do with it as well. The first modifier we're going to look at is lazy. And I'll refresh the page to be sure lazy starts working. So DEF, everything works normally. GHI, and it didn't work. I typed in GHI, but you see, it's not there. It's not there. It's there as soon as we left the field. Lazy just doesn't update the variable until we leave the field. That can be useful, I suppose, if you don't need the data right away and you can wait until you leave. So for our purposes, it's not convenient. But if you want to do this as a event, you could do a change. So see, it doesn't change anything until you leave the field. And this one, which isn't lazy, changes things right away. And this is lazy, so it waits to change things. And this is a change event, which is lazy. So basically, the lazy modifier just says use the change event instead of using the input event. Now I'm going to change it back to input because input is more convenient for our purposes here. All right, good. So there's more modifiers. I'm going to do trim modifier. So what does trim do? We can put spaces there, spaces there. That's okay. Let's put in some more spaces there, and it won't change it until we leave. And yep, it did it. And let's change some spacing there. And something, let me do a refresh here. What's going on? There it goes. Okay, I need to do a refresh. So I can put in spaces here, it's okay. Put in spaces here on our lazy field and it won't update until we leave. But the moment I change any spacing here, it gets rid of the leading and trailing white space. So trim, that's very useful if you don't want that extra blank data. Another modifier, a number. So I'll save and refresh to make sure that number works. Okay, should have taken. That goes in normally, but we've got number here. That seems to be going in normally. So what is number doing? Oh, we've still got our trim thing here. Number. See, the moment I put in a number at the beginning, it changed simple text to a number. What that's doing is it's parsing it. If it can parse it into a number, it is. In this case, because it starts with a 4, it can put it into a number. Now, the moment I take that number off, it just uses whatever value it is because it can't turn a bunch of letters into a number. So it leaves it as is. So you can see we can do decimal points as well. Now, number as good as it is, there is a better way of entering numbers. So here, let's just, I'll call this number. Oh, there we go. And I'll change the type to number. And we'll get rid of the lazy part. There we go. Okay. So what is this doing? This number field likes numbers, so that's what it's getting for us. So we do, and the moment we put in letters in there, it's not parsed into a number, so it finds out. But simple text is still getting what it's supposed to. And yeah, that is what number field does for us. There are use cases for both. Do you want to use an input field that is of type number? I think that's most useful. Or you can have it parsed into a number later with using the vModel modifier. So I think this is good enough for now. We're going to, let's just put in a value there. And, whatever. It's okay. So that's good enough for now. I'll be putting this code that we've got here up onto GitHub, so you can look and play with it as you will. And we'll be looking more into other fields later on, and how vModel makes your life easier in other ways than just this simple basic stuff that we've seen so far. Well, thank you for watching.